Hackers have hit major super funds. A cyber expert explains how to stop it from happening again. Let me zoom in. 7 of Australia's biggest superannuation funds have suffered a suspected coordinated cyber attack, with scammers stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars of members' retirement savings. So there were a few companies targeted. Australian Super appears to be the worst affected. It has roughly 3.5 million members and manages more than $365 billion in retirement savings. In this cyber attack, a handful of its members have lost about $500,000 in combined savings. I just want to paint a picture for you. No, let's keep reading for a minute. Australian Super is reportedly assisting authorities to recover the money. It is not yet confirmed if any remediation will occur. It's not yet clear whether the affected accounts had mandatory multi-factor authentication for login or money transfers, but this is a crucial measure to reduce the risk of similar cyber attacks happening in the future. The details are sparse, but we know it happened in the early hours of last weekend. Nobody would have noticed anything. The cyber criminals somehow obtained stolen passwords, either from the dark web or other hacked websites, and we've gone over exactly how these things operate and how people get access to passwords. This, for example, here, the Port of Seattle breach, is a great way to gather information that leads to people's passwords. I don't need to spell out all the steps, but you can see how accessing someone's data, government IDs, medical information, etc., would give you a leg up on determining that person's password and having access to it. And then you never know what it'll have, what doors it will open for you, including like this. They then use these passwords to try to access people's superannuation accounts. In a statement, the chief member officer said scammers had accessed up to 600 customer accounts to log into accounts. These are different from other attacks. Now, this is the part where it gets really depressing. There have been cases in the past of people being scammed out of their retirement savings. For example, in 2020, Australian man Lee Braz lost all of his retirement savings worth $180,000 to scammers. The scammers used fraudulent documents to trick his fund, Intrust Super, now owned by Hostplus, into authorizing the transfer. After a 4-year legal battle with the fund, Braz retrieved 1/3 of the money he had lost. However, this amount didn't cover his legal fees. God, this is so depressing. I hate talking about this. You're a programmer, okay? And or you're a manager or you're an executive. Here, let me paint a picture. Just a sec. Okay. So you're a programmer, you work at a company, and you're building out a feature. The manager your manager comes up to you and says, "Hey, so and so, we need X features done by the end of the week," and this comes directly from the CEO, and you go, "Okay, cool. This is easy. I'll just do it in React. Let's say React because that's what I'm using. It could be anything. Honestly, it could be anything. But you say React, and then you npm install a bunch of libraries because the features require some new libraries. You npm install them. You plumb them together. The features work. Generally speaking, they work. Let's just forget about like whether they perform fast. Let's just assume they perform fast. Like they're like fast and they work and they accomplish the goal, right? And then you deploy them to prod, and you've got two problems. One is that nobody checked your deployment process to see if you had secret keys that you probably shouldn't be including in your code. And two, the NPM libraries that you installed, two of them are deprecated. And I have an actual scientific study that I'm going to go over when I get the chance to do a proper stream that proves this happens way more than we'd care to believe or we would like to believe. This happens a lot. People use deprecated libraries a lot. So you deploy it, okay? And then you have something like this. So those keys are then used. We went over this on a previous Tech News stream. And the keys are used to access GitHub workflows, which then give you access to servers that you shouldn't have access to, which then give you the ability to, say, install malware or ransomware on other systems, access data that you shouldn't have access to. Maybe you sell that on the dark web because that's your jam. You make money off of it. Then somebody picks it up off the dark web, and then they piece together from your information a fake document that they send to a company. And the company believes that the document is true because who else would have access to the information that you have? Unless you're the person with the authority to have access to that information. And now I want you to picture you're, say, 50, maybe 60 years old. You're a machine welder or something. Or you work in some other underhyped, usually overlooked field that's really difficult work that most people take for granted. And you hustled. And maybe you have a kid and a wife, or something like that. And you've saved up $180,000. And maybe that money is going to go towards a home, or to make sure that you and your family can get by, or to make sure that your kid can go to a decent school after high school. And you've spent, if you're 50 or 60, you've probably spent 20 to 30 years minimum saving that kind of money. And you go to work, and for about a week or two, you don't even realize that the money is gone. And one day you watch your kid bring home an A from school. And he's like happy, like so proud. Like, look, I brought home an A in math class. And you're like, damn, that's my kid, right? And it gets you thinking, and you're like, oh man, I can't wait to see what my kid does when they grow up, or when they get out of, like, they're just at the end of high school or something like this. Let me go have a look to see how my savings are doing. And it's just gone. That money really mattered to you. So what do? You go and you sue the fund that lost your money. You spend 4 years. You can imagine what the legal fees are like. And at the end, you get 1/3 of the money. And the money that you get back don't even cover your legal fees. Which means at the end of it all, you have to pay out more. or nothing. Because some programmer either wasn't equipped to understand why the library that they used in the example I gave, or why it's important to understand basic security configurations, or why the insert abstraction or obfuscated mechanism here, they didn't understand why it was bad and what the consequences of that could be. And it might seem funny when I'm on here and I make, over the top statements and, my conspiracy theories that the scammers like this love it when we use stupid abstractions and AI slop. But I really do mean it. Because that's how these things operate. There is literally, well, maybe not in every case, so I got to be careful what I say, but there is at least a non-zero, maybe even over 50% of dark web data that wouldn't exist if it hadn't been for some programmer and some manager and some executive not really caring about the things that matter. And the sad part is that you can have your cake and eat it too. Because the common complaint about having to deal with, like, having to slow your flow of progress to deal with issues like making sure things aren't leaked, making sure you're not using deprecated libraries or, I don't know, insecure libraries or things like this. The argument is nothing would ever get accomplished, nobody would ever make money. No, that's not true. In fact, the opposite is true. There is more money to be made in this industry by being very careful and very deliberate about how you approach problems and how you execute on them. Performance sells. Reliability sells. Security sells. All of these things make you good money. Some cases it might take longer, but you will generally make more money. So that means that if you're an executive, your company will make more money. If you're a manager, you will check off a lot more positive things over the long run. And if you're a programmer, you will understand your craft better and you will feel way better about the stuff you're producing. Your imposter syndrome will go way down. You'll be able to jump from problem to problem a lot better because you'll have better ability to value judge what you're doing instead of just depending on an abstraction or an obfuscation that hides it from you. It starts there. When you don't have that mindset, it leads to someone who could be your father, your mother, your grandparent, your sibling, your kid, your spouse, your best friend, someone you care about, a neighbor that you really respect. It could be anybody that you have any amount of positive feelings towards who could be affected by this as a downwind consequence. Now, if you're someone who loves AI, you're also culpable for your stance on AI. And you have to be careful with it because AI has its place as well. But a lot of AI hypists just choose to willfully ignore the consequences of AI.